I want to turn to the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. What is your view of this war?
I think when you call it a war, you're doing a disservice to the people who are having their limbs blown off by some of the most advanced technical weaponry on the planet. It is a genocide and it is disgusting. And it doesn't matter which side of the political spectrum you fall on. When you observe a genocide in front of your very eyes, you should be disgusted.
Which side is waging genocide?
The Israelis are genociding the Palestinians, and you know it as well as everybody else does.
That.
Well, then it seems like your bosses are not allowing you to know it.
What do you think of what Hamas did on October the 7th?
Why are you starting the story in the middle, Piers?
I just asked you about the wider war. I'm now asking you specifically about Hamas.
I cannot professionally answer that question without talking about the context that led up to October 7th.
Well,
then you're asking me what I would do if my family was blown to pieces.
You're not in a jail. Hang on.
You're asking me what I would do if another government came along and blew my family to pieces?
You weren't put in a jail cell because of any oppression.
Absolutely I was.
No, you weren't.
Of course I was.
You were put in jail cell because you've been accused of serious sexual crimes.
I would not have been accused if I was not monumentally successful in speaking the truth.
Let me ask you again. It's a simple question. Some people can answer it straight away, including pro-Palestinians people I've had on my program. Many are very quick to say absolutely. Do you believe Hamas are a terror organization?
And that's a very interesting question, but I think you're peddling asininities.
Well, just answer the question.
In this video, Andrew Tate absolutely destroys Piers Morgan and immediately calls out his lies. Tate even directly exposes the boss who is paying Piers Morgan to act like a sold-out agent and blindly defend Israel's narrative. But Andrew Tate, being the top G, completely dismantles Piers Morgan on the spot. And what happens later in this video, I promise you definitely don't want to miss that. So let's keep watching.
What Hamas did on October the 7th.
Why are you starting the story in the middle, Piers?
I just asked you about the wider war. I'm now asking you specifically about Hamas.
I cannot professionally answer that question without talking about the context that led up to October 7th.
Well, nothing, to my mind, justifies what happened on October the 7th.
Nothing justifies what happened before October the 7th, Piers. This is the exact point. So you're talking to a man, I don't know what answer you expect from me, because let's forget the fact I'm a Muslim. You're talking to a man who is fighting oppression to the best of his ability because he believes that the people in charge of the world are enslaving us all, to the point where I detriment my own life. I end up in a jail cell because I'm speaking against oppression. Then you're asking me what I would do if my family was blown to pieces.
You're not in a jail. Hang on.
You're asking me what I would do if another government came along and blew my family to pieces?
You weren't put in a jail cell because of any oppression.
Absolutely I was.
No, you weren't.
Of course I was.
You were put in jail cell because you've been accused of serious sexual crimes.
I would not have been accused if I was not monumentally successful in speaking the truth.
Let me ask you again. It's a simple question. Some people can answer it straight away, including pro-Palestinians people I've had on my program. Many are very quick to say absolutely. Do you believe Hamas are a terror organization?
And that's a very interesting question, but I think you're peddling asininities.
Well, just answer the question.
Can somebody do me a favor? Google asininities and find out if it's a word.
I know what it means.
If it's not, make sure it's added to Webster on Top G's orders.
Okay, just, are they a terror group?
You're peddling asininities because I'll tell you why, Piers. Let me answer the question.
No, I'm not.
Of course you are.
It's a simple question.
That's like me asking...
I'll tell you why I asked, because the UK, where you were born, prescribes Hamas as a terror organization.
They also prescribe me as dangerous to children in schools. Let me explain something to you, Piers.
You're not prescribed as that.
If I were to sit here and say, is stealing wrong? And you'd say yes, and I go, but what if the person stealing is trying to feed their family, and if they don't, their family are going to die? Is it still wrong? You're trying to take a very nuanced and complicated argument and reduce it down to one sentence, which is failure.
You're trying to equate stealing with a mob of terrorists breaking over a border, going to peaceful...
Is that what Israel did?
Wait a minute.
A mob of terrorists breaking over a border and killing people. Is that what Israel did?
Going through a border on October the 7th.
Oh, October the 7th.
Massacring young people at a festival, massacring families in their homes in a kibbutz, setting fire to them, cutting their heads off, killing babies.
Oh, killing 40 babies. That was true.
Well, fine.
Were the babies vaccinated?
Why are you being flippant?
I'm not being flippant. The point I am making...
I don't find that funny.
No, but the point I am making is that the media lies, firstly. Secondly...
I can ask you about different things at the same time, right?
Sure.
So I'm asking you, first of all, specifically, what is your reaction to what happened on October the 7th?
Sure. I'll answer the question professionally. I do not condone the loss of human life on either side. I think anybody doing anything which directly damages civilians is disgusting and abhorrent. However, I would be an amateur if I could not sit and pretend I do not understand the motivations behind either side. This is not even me taking a side. I understand why Israel is doing what it's doing. I understand why Palestine is doing what it is doing. However, I still call the Israeli actions absolutely abhorrent and genocidal.
Okay, we're going to come to Israel's actions, I promise you. We will ask that question specifically. But in terms of what Hamas did on October the 7th, do you accept that was an act of terrorism?
It's an interesting question because
It's not really.
It is.
It's a very straightforward
because
question.
you're the person who would have called Nelson Mandela a terrorist while he was still in jail, and one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter.
I wouldn't
For
have
me to
called him
answer
that.
the question, yes, you would have. For me to answer the question, I have to be very professional, Piers. For me to sit on the outside in Romania with no personal involvement in Israel-Palestine, it's easy for me to say yes, it was an act of terror. However, if I was in Gaza, if I was in an open-air prison, if my family had been annihilated by bombs from the sky, if everybody I knew had suffered the loss of a loved one, if I had no chance of any kind of freedom or democracy or standard of life, would I believe it was an act of terror, or would I believe it's an act of resistance against oppression? You have to be very careful how you answer these questions.
So what do you think?
I think I understand what happens when you take people and put them in such an inhumane condition. For anybody to sit and say that you're going to take people and put them in absolutely inhumane conditions and give them no standard of life, and they're not allowed to ever fight back, or they are terrorists.
But I can agree with you.
Anyone who
Well,
does
wait a
that
minute.
is an amateur.
I can agree with you that the plight of the Palestinians for many decades has been absolutely shameful.
So what did we think was going to happen, Piers?
No.
Here, Piers Morgan keeps defending Israel as if everything happening in Gaza is justified. Yet, he ignores the decades of operations and that actually led to this crisis for nearly 17 years. Israel has controlled Gaza's borders, airspace, import, and movements. Palestinians live under a blockade with limited food, fuel, electricity, and almost no freedom. That's not security, it's collective punishment. So, when Piers asks why did Hamas attack, he skips the bigger picture. When a population is trapped, occupied, displaced, and bombed repeatedly, retaliation then becomes inevitable, right? Understanding the cause isn't endorsing the violence, it's actually acknowledging reality. No people stay silent after decades of suffocation. Here, Gaza endured a blockade since 2007, multiple wars with thousands of civilians killed in Gaza. Their land seizures and demolitions in the West Bank, restricted water, restricted electricity, an entire generation raised in an open-air prison. But even though Piers talks as if Israel bears no responsibility, he defends Israel's responses, how disproportionate they are, leveling neighborhoods, hospitals, schools, and refugee camps in the name of self-defense. Guys, let me know in the comments if you agree with Piers Morgan or Andrew Tate for how Piers Morgan is actually defending Israel, because I'm actually losing my mind how Piers Morgan is becoming so biased in this interview, like it's out of control. Guys, let me know your point of view in the comments. I'd definitely like to know.
Nothing justifies what happened on October the 7th.
So what are they
Nothing.
supposed to do?
Nothing.
So what are they supposed to do?
That was an act of medieval barbaric terrorism. Nothing justifies it.
Did they suffer
And your
acts
attempt
of
to-
medieval?
your-
Did they suffer
your
acts
attempt to
of
try and
medieval
equivocate-
Did they suffer acts of medieval barbaric terrorism before that date? Yes. And it's unfortunately an eye for an eye in this world.
Tell me-
I'm not condoning.
Give me-
I'm being a professional and answering
Give
to
me
you
one
why
example.
it happened.
Give me one example of where Israel, without any provocation, went into a specific question, went into Gaza and massacred 1,500 innocent people, cutting their heads off, taping and boasting about what they'd done back to their families in Israel, kidnapping Holocaust survivors, bringing them, they wouldn't of course done that in their case, kidnapping old grandmothers and bringing them back to Israel, kidnapping babies, kidnapping children. When has Israel actually gone in and done something of the scale of October the 7th?
There's literally endless examples of that.
Give me one.
In 2014, they were bombing civilians.
Give me-
And
no,
you
no.
know what, Piers? Let me tell you something.
I'm not talking
an
about.
expert. No,
I'm not
let me
talking
answer.
about what they would
Let me-
categorise as retaliation for rocket strikes. And there's an arguable point, as there is, for example, I'm vehemently against the expansion of the settlements on the West Bank. I think there are legitimate questions about the proportionality of Israel's response here.
Yeah, legitimate questions.
But in terms of what Hamas perpetrated on October the 7th, there is no instance of Israel doing that to the people of Gaza.
First
And you
things
have to
first.
accept that. If you don't accept that, you're either deluded or you're deliberately not wanting to say the obvious, which is that was an act of terrorism, because you're concerned about upsetting people in Palestine. Is that the case?
Let me go back to my first point when I said you're peddling asininities. The reason I said that is because to look at a situation, no matter how heinous, and to ignore all of the context and pretend that you do not understand why said situation happened
Nothing
is
justifies
asinine.
terrorism on that scale. Nothing.
Is asinine.
No, it's not.
It is. Because it's not about justification.
Let me
Piers.
tell you why.
Piers, it's not about justification.
Let me tell you. No,
it's about understanding the realities of the world.
Let me tell you the reality of the world. Hamas came to power in 2005. Hamas's initial founding charter made it clear that they are for the eradication of Israel And on October the 7th, they prove what that means is they will kill every Jew they can get their hands on. They are an existential threat to people in Israel and to Jewish people. And that is, I'm afraid, the purest personification of a terror group. I also think by doing what they did, as they have done since 2005, they weren't representing innocent Palestinian people in Gaza.
Who are suffering now.
They knew, yes, but Hamas knew when they did what they did that Israel would respond the way they did and that thousands of innocent Palestinians would get killed. They knew that and they still did it. So my question for you is, why can't you, which is my position on this, is very straightforward. What Hamas did was an act of terror. An absolutely despicable act of terror and should be called exactly what it is. And they are now demonstrably a terrorist group. That is why they were rightly prescribed that by the UK and America and other countries. And to try and pretend they're not makes you sound like Jeremy Corbyn. And I can't think of a worse insult to throw at you, right?
So according to how Piers Morgan runs the debate, he lines up every emotional charged point in Israel's favor and frames the conversation in a way where any direct response from Andrew Tate could instantly make him look like a villain. That's the tactic. Present the Israeli casualties first, highlight the tragedy in a very one-sided sequence, and then demand Tate give a quick, boxed in yes or no answer. But here's the problem. Piers Morgan isn't giving the full picture before asking those questions. He's not bringing up Gaza's blockade, the decades of displacement, or the constant pressure the Palestinian population has lived under. He only tells one half of the story, then expects Andrew Tate to answer in a way that fits the narrative he already said. So when Piers Morgan asks, do you condemn this? Answer directly. It's not a neutral question. It's a setup. He is framing the conflict emotionally from one side and then trapping the guest in a corner where any kinds of direct answer will be leveled as dodging. That's not balanced journalism. That's creating a storyline and forcing the guest to play a role inside it. Guys, let me know if you agree with me. I would really like to know your point of view on this one.
I don't think me and Corbyn agree on that.
But I also think there are legitimate questions to come about the way Israel's responded. We can come to that. But I just want to ask you one more time. Is what Hamas did on October the 7th an act of terrorism?
I think, Piers, it is peddling asininities for you to pretend that enslaving
So you sound
people...
like Jeremy Corbyn now.
No, let me answer the question.
15 times he refused to answer the question.
Let me answer the question.
You're now up
I'm
to
not
about...
refusing.
You're now
If you
about
look-
3 or 4.
If you look...
Are they a terror group or not?
They're one team's freedom fighter, and they're deemed a terrorist
What do
group.
you think?
I think that if you lock people in an open-air prison and steal their land, they're going to retaliate.
So they're not a terror group?
I think they're going to retaliate.
They're not a terror group?
One team's terrorist is another
Okay, we're
team's
now up
freedom
to about
fighter.
8. Are they a terror group?
And also, another thing I want to make clear to you, Piers.
Only Jeremy Corbyn has done this.
Done what?
Refused to answer the question.
I think that what they are doing is seemingly deemed an act of terror by the people that the terror...
Don't use weaselly words.
They're not weaselly. Of course the Israelis think they're a terror group, and of course the Palestinians think they're freedom fighters. It's stupid that you're asking the question.
Most of the
it's clear.
civilized world thinks they're a terror group who committed an act of terrorism. It's not difficult. What they did was an act of terrorism.
And I think that if Israel continues to conduct acts of terrorism on the Palestinian people, they're going to do nothing but strengthen the reaction.
Well, that's a different conversation I'm about to have with you about Israel's response. But before I get there, one more time, is Hamas a terror group who committed an act of terrorism?
I think that when you lock people in an open-air prison, you're going to have to expect retaliation.
No,
because I have to... There's people who are... First things I want to say, Piers.
If you don't mind me saying, I think it's spineless.
Sure.
I do.
That's fine.
You sound like Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, that is an insult.
Did you see my interview with him?
No.
Right, 15 times last week, I asked him the same question. 15 times he prevaricated and wouldn't answer. Eventually, when someone does that enough times, you know what they really think.
Okay.
You don't think they're a terror group.
Well, let me answer.
You don't think they're a terror group.
No, what I think is this. On certain
Because I'd be really curious what you think an act of terror is if it's not massacring 1,500 innocent people,
it's not
including Holocaust survivors,
Piers.
kidnapping babies, decapitating people, cutting their limbs off, raping women.
Yeah, talk about missing limbs. We're going to talk about that when we talk about what Israel have done.
But when we get there, it'll be in the context of you not...
Did you see how Piers Morgan wasn't even letting Andrew Tate speak? Did you see when Andrew Tate was pointing out the innocent people in Gaza losing limbs and lives, Piers just dodged the question like he didn't even hear it. Guys, isn't that a proof of who Piers Morgan is really supporting? Is there anyone out there who still thinks he is neutral? Raise your hand in the comments because I would definitely want to see those people.
Not admitting that was an act of terror.
Well, let me answer the question for the final time. I am a realist. And as a realist, sometimes you do not come to the conclusion of labeling good guys and bad guys. The world is not black and white.
Hamas are bad guys.
No, the world is not black and white. The world is actually very gray. Anybody who sits and thinks there's clearly a good guy,
there's nothing gray about what Hamas did,
and clearly a bad guy does not understand how the world works. And as a realist, what you do is you look at scenarios and you understand why they happen, how unfortunate they are, how unfortunate the loss of human life is, how civilians die on both sides, how innocents are dying in a chess game played by the elites on both sides. Both sides, you have innocent people who didn't even vote for the person making the decisions, who are ensuring their death, signing their death warrants. It's unfortunate on both sides. But listen, sir, you would not advocate Russia doing any of the things to Ukraine that Israel is doing to Palestine. You would not sit here.
Russia has been doing exactly that.
Russia has not done a fraction of the things to Ukraine that Israel has done to Palestine.
Russia illegally invaded a sovereign democratic country and has committed a barbaric rampage, trying to seize as much of Ukraine as it can, bombing maternity hospitals, killing innocent women and children. Right? Don't even try and have some kind of
this is genuine
equivocation of this.
I will. A Hamas rocket, a tiny Hamas rocket that can make a pothole in the road, and then they get hit back with cruise missiles. Let me ask you a question. Ukraine sent a drone and it hit the Kremlin. A drone attack. It did nothing. It damaged some shingles. If Russia decided to then respond with a missile attack on a hospital and annihilate 800 people,
it has been.
Do you think that would be allowed?
That's exactly what it has been.
Would you advocate for that?
Have you seen?
Would you support that
Have
reaction?
you seen the state of Mariupol, which they leveled to the ground?
The Ukrainians did level it. You're correct.
No, the Russians
2014.
The Russians leveled Mariupol.
And my question to you is, would you advocate those reactions? Let me ask you another question, Piers. This is a genuine question. Let me ask you a question, because I want to understand your point of view.
It's actually my interview of you.
Yeah, but you tried to understand mine. I just want to understand your point of view. If I believed, or if Israel believed, that one of the people in your house was a terrorist and decided to destroy your entire house and kill your entire family, would you sit and say, well, maybe there was a terrorist inside, I accept that? Or would you be enraged? Genuine question.
I don't think you can take an individual person's response.
Well, it's a bunch of individual people in Gaza. They're people, individuals with thoughts and dreams and aspirations which are being annihilated. 15-year-old girls without legs because of cruise missiles.
Let's come to that.
They are individual people. They're not cattle, Piers.
Let's come to that.
They're people.
Right, and so were the people in Israel on October the 7th.
And that's why it's so heinous, which is my exact point.
But not heinous enough to reach your bar of terrorism.
It's not about reaching bar of terrorism. It's understanding why things happen.
Watching Piers Morgan Uncensored, it's become clear why so many people accuse Piers Morgan of pushing a one-sided narrative. Every time Israel-Palestine comes up, he goes into full defense mode for Israel while skipping the actual history that created this crisis. He never talks about the 17-year blockade on Gaza, the restricted movement, the lack of clean water and electricity, or the fact that 2 million people have been trapped in what experts call an open-air prison. These aren't opinions, these are documented realities. But instead of addressing any of these, Piers Morgan keeps repeating the same narrow questions, acting like context doesn't exist. When Andrew Tate tried explaining the humanitarian situation and the decades of leading up to the violence, Piers immediately interrupted and redirected or framed the answer to fit his own angle. That's not a fair debate, that's controlling the conversation. A real journalist would explore the full picture. Piers instead shrinks it down to a single talking point, making complex suffering look like a simple yes or no argument, and viewers see right through it. People aren't frustrated because he asks tough questions, they are frustrated because he refuses to listen to tough answers. If you are hosting a global conversation, you cannot ignore decades of displacement, blockade and human suffering just to protect your preferred narrative. Guys, let me know in the comments, is Piers Morgan giving real journalism or just giving scripted arguments? Share your opinion in the comments. I would really like to know your point of view as well. And guys, if you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.